Transmissions jammed. Proximity coverage only.
Hey guys, Jacob here. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make a crit DPS build, or how to get more crit or critical hit damage on your build in general. I will be discussing a few things like what specializations you guys can use to increase it, gear sets, brand sets, weapons, weapon talents, and a few other things as well. First, if you guys are new, welcome to the channel. I upload daily Division 2 content on stuff like build videos, vendor resets, name gear weapon reviews, and much more. To get right into this, we're going to be starting at the Quartermaster at the specializations. The two specializations you guys want to keep an eye on are going to be Firewall and Demolitionist. I do not have Demolitionist spec'd out all the way on this character, keep that in mind, that's for my other character, but you guys can get the Laser Pointer, which gives you 7% critical chance, if I remember correctly. It's a little bit higher than the 5% obviously, but you guys can get this from the Spray and Pray Tier 3 on the SMGs for the Demolitionist. Next is going to be Firewall, which this is going to be the critical hit damage grip, which is the tactical short grip, which is a lightweight short grip for underbarrel or long rails, and you have to spec into running in the gun, which is going to be shotgun. So if you guys aren't a big shotgun person, you will have to spec in this to at least get this attachment for your guns. Now that's going to be about it for the specializations. Next up is going to be the weapons. I will be talking about a few weapons and a few talents that help you increase your critical hit damage, and a few things also with those. The first weapon I'm going to be talking about is going to be the Dark Winter, which this is going to be a big one, and a lot of you guys know this from the Season 1, and this is a weapon I've seen used all the time in the DZ and also PvE. This is the Dark Winter named Vector. It has the Perfect Killer talent, which is killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 50% critical damage for 10 seconds, which is really insane. For 10 seconds, you can have that 50% critical damage buff. And you can see alone, you get 14.5 critical chance, and I have 10% critical damage rolled on this as well. So I will compare this to another SMG real quick, which is going to be the CMG Banshee. I almost have max, which is 21% critical chance. From just alone on the critical chance on the SMG, you guys can get 20%, which will make up for some loss of critical chance if you guys might be trying to use a different piece, or if you want to put more armor on your build, and you could sacrifice something on your brand set if you guys want to lose it and gain more armor, or if you guys want to try some kind of hybrid build, you guys can use this. As for the attachments on this weapon, this goes for all high-end weapons, not exotics. Keep that in mind. You cannot change the talents on exotics in this game. You could in the first one, but not in the second one. The Rush from That Sight gives you 5% critical damage. You guys can also use the C79 scope, which gives you 5% critical chance. You also can use the Reflex, Rugged Mini Reflex Sight, which gives you 5% critical chance, which I use way more than the critical damage because I just tend to like it a little bit more, and it gives me more critical chance depending on what kind of build I'm using. But on this build, I'm capped on crit, so that's why I'm using the critical hit damage sight. For the muzzle, I'm using the critical hit damage flash hider. And for the grip, you guys can use anything you want. From the critical hit damage grip, you can use the laser pointer. You can use the Demolitionist laser pointer, which gives you a little more critical chance, which I don't have unlocked, or you can use the tactical short grip, which gives you 10% critical damage, which is way more than obviously the standard short grip. So if you want to have a little more critical damage, I would recommend using this. As for the magazine, you can use some weapons that have 10% critical damage on them. Either I don't have it unlocked, if I remember correctly, or I just don't know if it's on this weapon or not. I'm pretty sure it is. I just don't have it unlocked on my blueprints, but I could be wrong, so keep that in mind. Next is going to be the Eagle Bear, which I know a lot of people don't have this weapon, obviously, and there's no talent on here that makes the critical hit chance higher or increases it, which it's going to be the attachments. The attachments on this assault rifle are probably the best assault rifle attachments in the game, which the Eagle Sight gives you 10% critical chance. The Jagged Beak gives you 15% critical hit damage alone, which is way higher than your standard critical hit damage pretty much barrel, so that's a pretty big increase. So if you guys do have an AR style crit build and you're wondering what weapon to use the most, I would highly recommend using the Eagle Bear. Next up is going to be the Chameleon. The Chameleon has the talent Adaptive Instincts. Also, the attributes on here have critical chance already on them, so you'll get critical chance on the weapon alone. And Adaptive Instincts, which is hitting 30 headshots, grants 20% critical hit chance and 50% critical hit damage for 45 seconds, which that is 30 headshots, so I mean, if you have really good accuracy, you could proc this, and you can get some crit out of this, but most of you guys are probably going to be aiming for the body shots to get that 90% damage, but I just want to include this so you guys could ask about it, because I know some people are saying that you can get crit from this. For the attachment wise, there's no muzzle on here that gives you critical damage, so you're only getting the 15% chameleon optics, which is higher than the eagle bear optics, but it doesn't have critical hit damage on it, so you're only getting extra 5% critical chance from the chameleon. And the RPM obviously is higher, and you can get critical chance from the adaptive instincts, but it's all up to your play style and if depending on whether you want to use this or not, or use the eagle bear. Next up, the last two weapons are going to be the CMG Banshees, which is going to be Perfect Vindictive, which this is going to be more of a team-based crit weapon, which is killing an enemy with a status effect applied grants you and all allies within 20 meters, 18% critical chance and 18% critical damage. So if you're lacking on crit chance, obviously this will help you and critical damage. So if you're on max, you're probably just going to get the critical damage, and that will help you. But if you're lacking on crit chances, will help you as well. But I would not recommend using this by yourself if you're going to be running a pure DPS build. This is obviously best if you have someone maybe like using Eclipse Protocol on your team and they kill an enemy that's on fire. This will give you that buff and help your team out a lot. Next is going to be Strained, which is 10% critical damage for every 0.5 seconds you are firing, stacked up to 5 times. So if you just want to have more critical damage on your gun and you're maxed out to who knows how much, but you still want more, then obviously you can use this to stack that out even higher. And that's going to be about it for the weapons. Now on to the gear sets and brand sets. The first brand set we're going to be talking about is going to be the Providence brand set, which is the main one I use, and I know a lot of you guys use it as well. And the 1 piece is going to be headshot damage, the 2 piece is crit chance, and the 3 piece is critical damage. Now you'll have critical damage you can roll on here as an attribute and critical chance. You're also going to have a offensive mod slot, which can give you even more critical chance or more critical damage, so you can spec all reds in this and get crit chance like crazy. Next is going to be a gear set, which is going to be Negotiators, which I've seen a lot of people use this back when Warlords came out, which is going to be the 2 piece and the 3 piece, which gives you 15% critical chance and 20% critical damage. Then you have the 4 piece, which is Hostile Negotiations, which I'll explain real quick for you guys as well. Critical hit mark enemies up for 20 seconds, up to 3 marks total. When you critically hit a marked enemy, all other marked enemies take 60% of the damage dealt. Whenever a marked enemy dies, gain 2% critical damage, stacking up 20 times or until combat ends. And one thing you will notice compared to a normal brand set, which this is lacking attributes. You only get the weapon damage, which is the core attribute, and you get 2 attributes, which is your mod, which doesn't even count really as one added. So you have to have that mod there to make it for critical chance of critical damage. So if you are making a crit build, I'd highly recommend not using just the 2 piece and 3 piece. If you're going to run Negotiators, I'd run the 4 piece total. That way you get the all bonuses, because you easily can make it for critical chance and critical damage just from using pieces that give you more crit, like this piece of Providence, for example, here. Next is going to be Sombra, which this is a big one. I know a lot of people use a lot as well, and we're also comparing this to Negotiators because the 1 piece alone gives you 15% critical damage. You also can have critical damage rolled on this, and you could have critical damage on the mod. So you're actually getting more critical damage from the rolls on this compared to Negotiators, because you have more crit that you can spec into this piece because it has the 4 attributes. Next up is going to be Seska, which gives you 10% critical chance. And this is pretty much the same thing, only it's critical chance, so you can roll crit on this as much as you want. So you can have 12% just from the mod, and you can have 6% as a roll. Also, you could spec to more critical damage as well if you just want to have all critical damage. Obviously, you're going to have critical chance, and if you don't want to cap over, I would recommend changing it to something like Hazard or Armor Generation. So if you're overflowing a critical hit chance, and like you're using SMG build, and you don't want to lose an attribute due to the fact you're overflowing, then obviously flip it to something to your liking, like Hazard Protection or Armor Generation, depending on what you're playing, like if you're in the DZ or PvE. The final one on the list is going to be Sokolov, which this is the main one I'd recommend if you guys are SMG users, which is going to give you SMG damage right off the bat, unlike Providence, and you'll get critical damage and critical chance. So it's basically like Providence without the critical hit or without the headshot damage, and this gives you direct weapon damage to your SMG, and you can spec into nothing but reds on this and absolutely tear through everything. And it's a pretty good combo if you're using something like the Lady Death or using something like the Dark Winter to get max crit out of your SMG. And that's going to be about it for the brand sets. The final thing on the list I'm going to be talking about is a few talents that give you guys a little bit of damage that can help you with your crit. Keep this in mind, this will not increase your critical hit damage or chance, but it will give you a damage buff to help out you and your team, depending on who's using it. The first thing is going to be for yourself, which is going to be Obliterate. This does not help your team, this helps you. So if you're solo or just want to have high as much DPS as possible, this is around crit. So critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 15 times. So just alone from hitting crits on stuff, you'll be able to get your weapon damage up pretty high, which is a nice thing to use if you don't want to use something like Intimidate, which does require you to have bonus armor. So if someone's proccing bonus armor in your group, you obviously can use this to get that 35% weapon damage, or you could use something like Overwatch in your team if you want to give your team more weapon damage and more skill damage. Or you guys can have a future initiative in your group, which I will show you guys real quick. This gives you the 15% total damage and skill damage for 15 seconds when at full armor. So if you have people using talents like that to buff your damage, same goes for Empathic Resolve. So on top of Empathic Resolve, then on top of Overwatch, then if you have someone using Feature Initiative, you can have damage stacked like crazy, and that without on top of your critical chance, critical damage, you will absolutely just shred through pretty much anything you touch. And the next thing is going to be your shade level. You can actually get 10% critical chance from just your Shade Watch getting 50 out of 50, which gives you max value 10. And then you can have max value 20% critical damage from the offensive tree in your Shade Watch as well. So you can get 20% just from that also. So keep that in mind. You can have that just from your Shade Watch. Now I will show you guys the character sheet real quick for some of the weapons. This is going to be the Dark Winter. You guys can see I have 60% critical chance and 204 critical damage. And you'll see on the right here what pieces those are from. And keep this in mind, if you guys have more higher stat rolls, this will be way higher than you. Or if you use stuff like the Dark Winter here, you can proc more critical damage if you have that procced. And same goes for if you have someone in your group who's using like the Coyote Mask to give you more critical damage and chance. But obviously your chance is going to go higher, so keep that in mind. It's capped at 60, but obviously it will help your critical hit damage out way more than your chance. But overall, that's a quick little video on a few things to make a pretty much all damage build. There's a few combos you guys can use depending on how you want to design this. This is a quick little combo, which is the standard one that a lot of people use. It's probably the easiest to make. You just need 3 pieces of Providence. You need Sombra, Seska, and whatever piece you're using to your weapon. And if you don't want to use weapon damage from a piece, say you don't want to use this Fenris, you obviously can flip this out to something like a Providence piece and then throw on something like the Coyote Mask to get the Pack Instincts talent and have that proc for your team and yourself. But overall, thank you guys all for watching. I hope this video helped. I know some people have been asking me about it for a decent amount of time now. But as always, I will catch you guys in the next one.